VLSos here. This is a video lesson on types of equations. We're going to make a list of 5 types of equation. We're going to name them. We're going to think of equations as families of different types. And the name then is the name of the general type of equation. We're also going to put the form, the parent form, of each type of equation. And what we mean by parent form is the simplest equation of its type. So we're going to have families of equations, and the simplest in that family is called the parent form. And then we'll sketch a graph of these. The first equation is y is equal to 1, a very simple equation. Y is equal to the constant value of 1. There's no variable in this equation. So we call these types of equations, this family of y is equal to any number without a variable, as the family of constant equations. A graph of y is equal to 1, the graph of this parent equation here, is very simply a line that is horizontal, completely flat, because the values of this is constantly 1. Another name for a family of equations is linear. Linear equations graph as lines, but not horizontal like this line. We're going to graph a line that has a slope. It goes up at an angle. And the very simplest linear equation is y is equal to x. These two equations belong to different families. They're similar, but this first one that's a constant is y is equal to some number, in this case 1, whereas a linear equation has a variable in it. The simplest is y is just equal to x all by itself. Another family of equation we call quadratic. The very simplest quadratic equation that we can write is y is equal to x squared. What makes a quadratic equation quadratic is that the variable is being squared. And a graph of a quadratic equation we'll stuff in here is a curve. In this case, a curve that opens up. The linear equations graph we're going to point to over here. And this curve, sometimes we call the graph of a quadratic a parabolic curve. That curve is a parabola. And a fourth family of equation, y is equal to x cubed. This is the simplest form of cubic equation, so the name of this family is called cubic. And we will graph a cubic equation, the simplest cubic equation that can be graphed. Looks like this. It curves, but it also changes its curvature. We'll learn to call that an inflection, where the curving changes. Graph of parent cube is there. And we've got one more parent form. Y is equal to the square root of x. This belongs to the family of roots. It's specifically a square root, but there are other roots that we can take. And the graph of a root is very different than these. It starts at the origin, the graph of the parent root, and it curves up like this and keeps going. Five families of equations, each having their own name to describe the kinds of equations that belong to that family, and an example of the equation, but the parent form, which is the simplest possible, that belongs to that family. There are more than five parent functions. There are more than five different families of equations. This is a good start. The last thing that we're going to talk about is what it means to be a function. These are equations because they're a comparison that uses an equal sign. But some equations can be called functions. And there's more to say about what a function is, but we're going to start that conversation by including this in our notes. An equation is a function if for every value of x in the coordinates of the points on the graph, an equation is a function if for every x there is no more than one corresponding y. Making sense of what this means and practicing looking at equations and looking at graphs to determine whether they are functions takes some practice, and it will be the topic for future lessons. But this is important enough that we want to start our understanding of what it means to be a function right here.